Hi, this is Tim of the Watchbox with a 1-minute watch review of the Rolex Oyster Perpetual Cosmograph Daytona reference 116520, stainless steel, 40 millimeters in diameter, 12.4 millimeters thick. Two ways to measure this watch from lug to lug. If you're going to measure it lug to lug and you're just going to measure the lugs, then it's 46 millimeters across. But if you include the solid end links of the Oyster bracelet, it's a more substantial 50.8 millimeters lug to lug with a 20 millimeter spacing between the lugs. Throw the watch on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist, and you can see this model, which was made from 2000 to 2015, is a good look. More integrated and coherent. You have the steel bezel and the steel case rather than the later ceramic. It sits flat, flush, and easily slides underneath the cuff. From overhead, you can see I've got plenty of clearance on each side of the lugs, and then down the barrel shot, you can see I have plenty of wrist on either side. I could recommend it for a wrist as small as 13.5 centimeters circumference. Taking a quick look at the hardware, this is the Oyster bracelet, but this M series watch combines the Oyster bracelet with removable links fixed by screws with the older clasp. So you can see this is not the later lift lock clasp internal. This one has a snap lock and a clamshell system. That would be replaced in 2009 with the lift lock trigger. So this is the older model, but it still includes the Easy Link 5mm adjustment. That's the equivalent of adding or removing one sizable link. You can take it in or take it out without having to remove links. And then you have inside 3 divots drilled, so you can actually move the anchoring point of the bracelet inside. So you can use Easy Link, removable links, and the 3 divots to fine-tune the fit of this watch. Roll into the case band, you can see the Daytona has not changed a lot in profile since the first automatic model launched in 1988, and that's all to your advantage because the case here is graceful. This is not the sub-GMT Explorer 2 and Sea Dweller Super case. Everything's in high polish, it's fluid, it's almost a flame-like effect you get as the light dances across the surface. Now the bezel is also steel, and you can see all of the original lacquer is intact inside the tachometer, speaking to the condition and treatment of the watch as a whole. The timepiece, of course, features a black dial that I happen to prefer over the silver. That's just personal preference, but I like the visual power and punch of the black lacquer. You have sunken metallic registers with a concentric circular guilloche inside or azurage. Hands, crown, and indices all are white gold to prevent tarnish or oxidation over time. Underneath the screwed-in Oyster case back, you have the Rolex manufacturer caliber 4103. 8 beats per second, 44 joules, automatic winding, bidirectional. It has a 72-hour power reserve, and it was the first Rolex movement to use a rotor bearing instead of a jeweled staff. This makes it more shock tolerant. Like other Rolex sports watches, it uses a full balance bridge and a free-sprung index for shock resistance, and it uses a niobium zirconium hairspring alloy for anti-magnetism and a handmade Breguet overcoil hairspring profile so that the hairspring beats concentrically in any position on the wrist or the dresser at night. That helps the watch to be regulated and timed in 5 positions, the better to earn a COSC chronometer certification, which it has. The watch is 100 meters water resistant, and it does feature stop seconds. It also features a vertical clutch and a column wheel architecture for the chronograph. So the column wheel makes for crisp actuation. You really feel and hear it as you operate the pushers. And then the vertical clutch allows you to start the chronograph without any jump or stagger to the seconds hand. The vertical clutch also allows you to leave the chronograph running with no additional wear or tear to the mechanism. If you just happen to prefer to have your seconds fully running all the time, then you can read seconds, minutes, and hours at the center. The vertical clutch gives you that flexibility. Discontinued and much loved, the steel-on-steel bezel features 904L steel for both elements. Compared to standard 316L steel, 904L is more corrosion resistant. Rolex boasts that you can expose it to seawater or pool chemicals with no need to rinse. It is that resilient. That is not the case with 316. This watch, exceptional even in its fabrication, with Rolex making its movements as well as its cases, its clasps, its bracelets, even its own steel at its own foundry. Email tmosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details. And we're back with the Rolex Daytona by night.